Have you ever noticed how your mind refuses to slow down even when your body is begging for rest? Maybe you're lying in bed after midnight in Toronto, replaying every mistake you made at work. Or you're stuck in Los Angeles traffic, already stressing about tomorrow's deadlines. Or maybe you're in London, scrolling your phone long after you promised yourself you'd sleep. Wherever you are, the story is the same. The body wants peace, but the mind keeps running laps. If this feels familiar, you're not alone. In fact, let me know in the comments where you're watching from right now. Sometimes just realizing that people across the world, New York, Vancouver, Berlin, Paris, are sharing this same restless experience can be strangely comforting. We live in a world that tells us to keep moving faster, to hustle harder, to stay connected every second. And yet the more we race, the more we lose touch with the simple miracle of being alive. We forget that freedom isn't about escaping responsibilities. It's about breathing and walking in a way that feels lighter, more human, even in the middle of everything. What if I told you it takes only 2 seconds to return home to yourself? 2 seconds to stop the endless loop in your head and remember that you're more than your worries, your plans, your to-do list. For many of us, that sounds impossible. But for thousands of years, people have been practicing a way of living that proves otherwise. Stay with me, because in the next moments, we're going to explore something simple, yet powerful. A practice you can use anytime, anywhere to breathe as a free person and to walk as a free person. And it begins with your very next breath. Think about how often your freedom is stolen without you even realizing it. Not by governments, not by bosses, not even by other people. It happens quietly, invisibly every day inside your own mind. You may feel it when your phone buzzes and you can't resist checking another notification. You may feel it when you replay an argument from years ago, or when you lie awake rehearsing conversations that may never happen. These are the moments when your body is here, sitting in a chair, lying in a bed, standing in line, but your mind is trapped somewhere else entirely. And that is the hidden prison most of us live in. We mistake busyness for purpose. We mistake constant planning for control. We mistake distraction for relief. Yet what really happens is that life passes by while we are absent from it. You can walk through a park in Montreal without ever noticing the trees because your thoughts are already in tomorrow's meeting. You can sit at a family dinner in Chicago and never taste the food because you're replaying yesterday's mistakes. You can walk down the streets of Rome with the beauty of history all around you and still miss everything because you're staring at your phone. The tragedy is not that we have responsibilities or challenges. The tragedy is that we carry them like chains even when we don't need to. The good news is that the key to this prison has always been in your pocket. It is not complicated. It does not require special training or expensive tools. In fact, you have been practicing it since the very first moment you entered this world. The key is your breath. Every inhale and exhale is like a door you can step through to return to yourself. It takes 2 or 3 seconds, no more, and yet those seconds can change everything. Imagine for a moment you are sitting in your office in Vancouver. Your shoulders are tense, your jaw is tight, your chest feels heavy. Emails are piling up, deadlines are crashing in, and you feel like there is no way to stop the avalanche. Then a bell rings, maybe just a reminder on your phone. You close your eyes, inhale gently, and notice that you are breathing. For those few seconds, the storm of your mind pauses. You are no longer just a worker drowning in tasks. You are a human being, alive in this moment. That tiny pause is not trivial. It is freedom. The first practice is simply to recognize your breathing. Inhale, I know I am inhaling. Exhale, I know I am exhaling. That's all. It may sound ridiculously simple, almost too simple for our complicated lives, but that is why it works. When you give full attention to the act of breathing, everything else falls away. The regrets of the past, the deadlines of the future, the chatter of your inner critic, they loosen their grip. For that brief moment, you are free. Think about it. When was the last time you felt truly free? Not because you had finished all your work or paid all your bills, but free simply because you were present. For most of us, those moments are rare, but the truth is they are available anytime. Freedom is not something to earn or chase. It is available right now, hidden inside your next breath. Once you become familiar with recognizing your breath, you can take the next step, following it. Every inhale has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Every exhale unfolds in its own gentle rhythm. By simply staying with the full arc of your breath, you train your mind to return again and again to the present moment. It is like walking beside a dear friend step by step without rushing ahead or falling behind. You do not need to force anything. You only need to stay. The more you stay, the more your concentration deepens. And the more your concentration deepens, the more joy you discover in something as ordinary as breathing. Joy in breathing may sound strange, but it is actually the most natural joy in the world. When you breathe with full awareness, you realize something profound: you are alive. This breath proves it. This moment confirms it. Millions of people did not live to see today, but you did. That realization alone can bring a quiet happiness that no success or achievement could replace. Think of a morning in Paris, the air crisp with autumn. You sit on a park bench, close your eyes and breathe deeply. The cool air fills your lungs. For that moment, you are not rushing to work or worrying about the future. You are simply alive. That is happiness. It costs nothing. It requires nothing. It is available to you every time you breathe consciously. But life does not only ask us to sit and breathe. Life asks us to move, to walk, to engage. That is why mindful walking is the natural extension of mindful breathing. Every step can be an anchor pulling you back to the here and now. Most of us walk like we are being chased by time. We rush from the parking lot to the office, from the subway to the meeting, from the kitchen to the living room, never arriving anywhere because our mind is always ahead of our body. But what if each step was complete in itself? What if each step was a destination? Picture yourself walking through a quiet street in Amsterdam. Instead of rushing to your next appointment, you slow down just slightly. You notice your feet touching the ground. You match each step with a breath. Step inhale, step exhale. Suddenly, the world around you becomes vivid. The sound of bicycles, the reflection of light on the canals, the cool air on your face, all of it becomes alive because you are alive to it. This is not just walking. This is freedom in motion. The beauty of this practice is that it requires no extra time. You are going to walk anyway. You are going to move from one place to another. Why not walk as a free person instead of as a prisoner of your thoughts? From the parking lot to your workplace, from your bed to your kitchen, from one room to another, every step can be a reminder that life is happening here, not in the past, not in the future, but right now. Some people discover this practice in the busiest moments of their lives. A teacher overwhelmed by her students, a nurse carrying the weight of too many patients, a single parent juggling endless tasks. They find themselves on the edge of collapse. But when they stop, even for 30 seconds, and bring attention to their breath and their steps, something shifts. The tension in their shoulders eases. The tightness in their chest softens. They realize that even in the middle of chaos, peace is available. Not later, not someday, right now. Your body is not just a machine that carries your head around. It is your home, and like any home, it suffers when you neglect it. The body holds stress like a sponge, absorbs water. Your shoulders carry the weight of responsibility. Your jaw clenches with unspoken words. Your stomach churns with unacknowledged anxiety. You may not even realize how much tension you are storing until you pause and feel it. That is why mindful breathing and walking are not luxuries. They are acts of repair. They are how you return home to your body, how you clean the house you have abandoned. When you reunite your mind and body through the breath, you rediscover the miracle of embodiment. Your heart beating steadily, your lungs expanding effortlessly, your skin sensing the world. All of this happens without your control, without your command. And yet it is happening right now, keeping you alive. To recognize this is to wake up to the miracle you live inside every day. There is also a larger gift hidden in this practice. When you breathe mindfully, when you walk with awareness, you do not just change your own state. You change the atmosphere around you. Imagine sitting in a meeting in New York where everyone is tense, voices raised, energy sharp. If one person breathes slowly, speaks calmly, and remains grounded, the entire room begins to soften. Or picture a parent in Berlin breathing consciously while their child is upset. Instead of escalating the storm, the parent becomes an anchor of peace. The child feels it even without words. This is how personal freedom becomes collective freedom. True happiness grows from this soil. Most of us think happiness comes after we achieve something, after we fix something, after life finally gives us a break. But real happiness is not a prize to be earned in the future. It is a light you can turn on in the present. One mindful breath can generate joy. One mindful step can generate peace. This is not theory. It is a practice you can experience for yourself right now. Take a moment. Place your hand gently on your chest. Inhale slowly. Feel the rise. Exhale gently. Feel the fall. For these few seconds, you are not lost in the storm of your mind. You are here. You are free. That is happiness. The practice is not about ignoring pain or pretending life is perfect. Pain will still come. Stress will still visit. Responsibilities will still be there. But when you have learned to return to your breath and your steps, you no longer drown in them. You learn to hold them with awareness the way a mother holds her crying child. You do not fight the pain. You embrace it. And in that embrace, the pain softens. This is how we transform our lives, not by running away from suffering, but by learning to face it with tenderness. And when we can face our own suffering this way, we naturally begin to look at others differently. We recognize that behind anger is pain, behind harsh words is fear, behind cruelty is confusion. Understanding creates compassion, and compassion changes everything. Peace is not somewhere else. It is not waiting in the future. It is available in each breath, in each step, in each choice to be present. You do not need to wait until you have more money, more time, or fewer problems. You can touch peace right now with the body you already have, with the breath that has never left your side, with the steps you are already taking. So as you finish this moment with me, I invite you to practice. Wherever you are, whether in a living room in Toronto, a cafe in Paris, or a quiet park in San Francisco, pause for just one breath. Inhale and know you are inhaling. Exhale and know you are exhaling. Let the weight of the past fall away. Let the pressure of the future dissolve. Arrive here in the only moment you truly have. That is where your freedom begins. You may not notice it, but every single day life quietly steals something from you. Not through dramatic events, not through disasters or losses, but in small, invisible ways. A buzzing phone pulls you away from a conversation with someone you love. A thought about tomorrow interrupts your meal. A memory from years ago replays in your head while the present moment slips by unnoticed. These tiny thefts accumulate until you wake up one day and realize that most of your life has been lived somewhere else, anywhere but here. It is not that responsibilities are bad, or that thinking about the future has no value. Planning is important. Memories can hold wisdom. But when you spend 90% of your day either rehearsing tomorrow or replaying yesterday, what is left for today? You can sit on a beach in Barcelona and not feel the ocean. You can eat at a family table in Boston and not taste the food. You can walk down the cobblestone streets of Prague surrounded by centuries of history and still miss everything because your mind is somewhere else. This is what we have normalized living absent from our own lives. We call it productivity. We call it ambition. But the truth is that it is a kind of prison. A prison where the bars are made of thoughts and the guard is your own restless mind. And the strange thing is that the door is always unlocked. You can step out of it at any moment, if only you know how. That door is your breath. It may sound too simple. After all, you have been breathing since the day you were born. Why should you pay attention to something that happens automatically? But think about this. Breathing is the only function that is both automatic and conscious. Your heart beats without your control. Your liver works in silence whether you think about it or not. But your breath is different. It happens on its own, yet at any moment you can take hold of it. You can deepen it, slow it down, or simply notice it. That is why the breath is the perfect doorway. It is always with you, waiting to bring you back home. Try it now. Inhale slowly. Notice the coolness of the air entering your nostrils. Pause. Exhale gently. Feel your chest soften, your shoulders release. For those few seconds, nothing else matters. The emails, the bills, the arguments, the deadlines, they all fade into the background. What remains is the simple truth that you are here, alive in this body, in this moment. That is freedom. And freedom is not only about breathing. It extends into every step you take. Walking is one of the most ordinary things we do, and yet it can become one of the most powerful practices. Most of us walk as if chased by time itself. We rush through airports in Toronto, across subway stations in New York, down crowded streets in Paris, always trying to get somewhere else. Our bodies move, but our minds are already at the destination. But imagine this instead: you slow down just a little. You notice your feet touching the ground. You breathe with each step. Step inhale, step exhale. Suddenly the world around you comes alive. The texture of the pavement, the sound of birds, the way the air feels on your skin, all of it becomes vivid because you are present to it. This is mindful walking, and it transforms something ordinary into something sacred. Each step becomes not a means to an end, but an arrival in itself. Your destination is not the office or the meeting or the store. Your destination is this step, this breath, this moment. That shift changes everything. You do not need to carve out extra time for this practice. You do not need to go to a monastery or sit on a cushion for hours. You are going to walk anyway, from your bedroom to the kitchen, from your car to the office, from the grocery aisle to the checkout. Why not walk as a free person instead of as a prisoner of your thoughts? Each step can be liberation. Each step can be peace. There is another layer to this practice. When you breathe and walk with awareness, you begin to notice something else: your body. Not as a machine, not as a tool, but as your true home. For years, many of us have treated our bodies like strangers. We only pay attention when they hurt, when they break down, when they demand rest. Otherwise, we ignore them, living almost entirely in our heads. But when you reunite with your body through mindful breathing and walking, you rediscover what it means to be alive. Think about it. Your heart beats steadily day and night without needing your permission. Your lungs expand and contract in perfect rhythm, feeding every cell with oxygen. Your blood flows through miles of vessels, carrying life to every corner of you. And all of this happens whether you notice it or not. But when you do notice, when you bring attention to it, something shifts. You realize that this body is not just a vehicle carrying your brain from one task to another. This body is your anchor to the present. It is your home, and it has been waiting for you to come back. Sometimes, people only realize this after years of ignoring it. A teacher constantly caring for her students and her family finally pauses long enough to notice the tension in her jaw, the tightness in her shoulders, the heaviness in her chest. A business executive always chasing the next goal finally feels the anxiety stored in his stomach, the stiffness in his back, the shallow way he has been breathing. They are surprised because they did not even know they were carrying this much pain. But that is what happens when mind and body are strangers. The body holds the stress, but the mind is too distracted to notice. When you come home to your body through breathing and walking, you begin to release this accumulated tension. You let your shoulders drop. You soften your jaw. You allow your breath to deepen. It is not about collapsing or going limp. It is about conscious relaxation, choosing to let go of what no longer serves you. Every inhale brings awareness. Every exhale releases stress. Little by little, your body remembers what it feels like to be free. And here is something even more remarkable: when you practice this kind of presence, the people around you feel it too. Imagine a parent breathing mindfully while their child is upset. The calm energy of the parent becomes a refuge for the child. Imagine a nurse walking mindfully through a hospital corridor, each step steady, each breath calm. Patients and colleagues alike feel safer in that presence. Imagine sitting in a tense meeting where one person remains grounded, breathing slowly, speaking with calm clarity. That person changes the atmosphere of the entire room. This is the power of personal freedom. It spreads. Happiness then is no longer something to chase. It is not waiting for you in the future after you get the promotion or buy the house or solve all your problems. Happiness is available right here, right now, in your next breath, in your next step. It is not a prize you earn. It is a light you switch on by choosing to be present. This does not mean pretending difficulties do not exist. Pain and stress will still come. Responsibilities will still demand your attention. But when you know how to breathe and walk mindfully, you learn to hold your suffering instead of being swallowed by it. You learn to embrace your pain like a mother holds a crying child. Not with anger, not with rejection, but with tenderness. And in that tenderness, the pain begins to soften. Think about the last time you were overwhelmed by anger or sadness. The natural instinct is to push it away, to distract yourself, to drown it out with work or entertainment or noise. But what if instead you paused? What if you breathed slowly and said to yourself, I see you. I know you are here. I will take care of you. That small shift transforms suffering into something workable. It does not erase the pain, but it changes your relationship with it. And that change is everything. When you learn to treat your own suffering with compassion, you naturally begin to see others differently. Behind harsh words you recognize fear. Behind anger you see pain. Behind cruelty you see confusion. Instead of reacting with more anger, you respond with understanding. And understanding is the seed of compassion. Compassion changes how you treat your family, your co-workers, strangers on the street. It changes how you move through the world. Peace is not at the end of some long road. It is not a prize waiting in the distant future. It is available right now in each breath and each step. The choice is yours. You can continue to live absent from your own life, always racing toward a future that never arrives. Or you can stop, breathe, walk, and discover that freedom has been with you all along. So, as you listen now, I invite you to practice. Wherever you are, in a living room in Toronto, a cafe in Berlin, a park in San Francisco, pause for one mindful breath. Inhale and know you are inhaling. Exhale and know you are exhaling. Let the weight of the past slide away. Let the pressure of the future dissolve. Arrive here in the only moment you truly have. This is where your freedom begins. When you begin to live this way, something extraordinary starts to unfold. The world itself doesn't change overnight, but your relationship to it does. What once felt heavy begins to feel lighter. What once felt impossible begins to feel manageable. The constant noise in your head no longer controls you in the same way because you have discovered a different place to stand. You are no longer tossed around by every passing thought or emotion. You have learned how to return again and again to a quiet center within yourself. That center is not far away. It is not hidden in a temple or buried deep in a mountain cave. It lives in your body in the gentle rhythm of breathing in and breathing out. The body has always been waiting for you, carrying you faithfully through every storm, every season, every challenge. And when you finally come home to it, you realize how much you have missed. The sensation of your feet on the ground, the subtle rise and fall of your chest, the small miracle of being able to see the sky, to hear a bird, to feel the wind. These are things you may have overlooked for years, but once you reclaim them, you wonder how you ever lived without them. Take walking, for example. For most of your life, you have probably treated walking as nothing more than transportation, a way of getting from point A to point B. But walking can be so much more. Each step can be a declaration, I am here. Each step can be an arrival, not at a destination far away, but in the very heart of your life. This changes everything. Instead of rushing to get somewhere, you walk to be somewhere. Instead of missing the journey, you discover that the journey is all you really have. Think of an ordinary walk through the streets of Toronto on a cool autumn morning. Normally you might rush to work with your mind already inside the office. But if you slow down slightly, if you match your breath with your steps, the city reveals itself in a new way. The crisp air fills your lungs, the golden leaves crunch beneath your feet. The sound of distant traffic fades into the background, and suddenly you feel grounded. You are not lost in your head. You are alive, awake, connected to the world around you. Or picture yourself in Rome, weaving through ancient alleyways. Instead of being consumed by schedules and notifications, you notice the texture of old stones, the smell of fresh bread, the laughter spilling out of a cafe. Each step becomes an act of appreciation. Each breath becomes a reminder that life is happening now, not later. This is not just poetry, it is practice, and practice changes lives. People who once felt overwhelmed by anxiety discover that they can breathe themselves back into calm. Parents who once reacted with frustration learn to pause, inhale deeply, and respond with patience. Professionals in high-pressure jobs discover that mindful steps in a corridor can reset their entire nervous system. Students weighed down by exams find that 3 conscious breaths before opening a textbook can make their concentration sharper. Ordinary people in ordinary circumstances reclaim something extraordinary, their presence. And presence brings with it another gift, gratitude. When you are present, you begin to notice what is already here, already working, already beautiful. The mind tends to fixate on what is missing, what is broken, what is wrong. but the breath teaches you to pay attention differently. Suddenly you notice the miracle of sight, the gift of hearing, the quiet loyalty of your own heart. You notice the smile of a stranger, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the taste of a simple meal. Gratitude arises naturally when you are awake. There is a woman I once met who practiced this during one of the hardest periods of her life. She had lost her job, her marriage was collapsing, and she was facing serious health concerns. Every day felt like a mountain she could not climb. At first, she resisted any suggestion that something as simple as breathing could help. But in her desperation, she tried. She began writing down everything she could be grateful for each morning. At first, the list was short: the roof over her head, the support of her sister, the coffee she enjoyed in the morning. But day by day, the list grew. She started noticing the tree outside her window, the kindness of her neighbor, the ability to walk, the ability to read the sound of music. As she breathed with awareness and wrote with gratitude, her perspective shifted. Her circumstances were still difficult, but her suffering no longer felt absolute. She discovered that joy could coexist with pain. That discovery is at the heart of this practice. You do not need to wait until your life is perfect to be happy. You do not need to wait until your problems are solved to feel peace. Happiness and peace are available in each moment if you know how to recognize them. One breath, one step, one conscious pause can reveal them. Of course, not every moment is joyful. Pain is part of life. We lose people we love. We face disappointment, illness, uncertainty. And yet even here, mindfulness offers a way forward. Instead of running from pain, you learn to hold it. You learn to acknowledge it with the same tenderness a mother shows her crying child. When anger rises, you breathe and say gently to yourself, "I see you." When sadness appears, you breathe and whisper, "I know you are here." You do not try to push it away. You do not drown in it either. You simply hold it like a friend who needs care. And in that holding, something begins to change. The storm softens. The pain reveals its roots. And with understanding comes compassion. Compassion first for yourself, because you finally realize you are human, not a machine. Then compassion for others, because you see that their harshness and mistakes often come from their own unhealed pain. The co-worker who lashes out, the stranger who cuts you off in traffic, the family member who says something cruel, behind all of them is suffering. And when you see that, anger turns into understanding. Understanding grows into compassion, and compassion changes how you live. This is how mindful breathing and walking ripple outward. They do not just change your inner world. They change your relationships. They change your communities. A calm teacher changes a classroom. A mindful nurse changes a hospital. A parent who breathes before reacting changes an entire household. Slowly, step by step, breath by breath, the world itself changes because you have changed the way you show up in it. And the truth is, you do not need grand gestures to make this impact. You do not need to retreat to the mountains or dedicate hours each day. You need only small, steady moments of presence. A breath before speaking. A conscious step on the way to work. A pause before opening your email. These little acts accumulate. They rewire the way you experience your life. They remind you that freedom is not at the end of the road, but here now in each inhale and each exhale. Think of it as weaving a new fabric of life. Each mindful breath is a thread of calm. Each mindful step is a stitch of peace. Over time, those threads and stitches create something strong and beautiful. Something that holds you in difficult times and delights you in ordinary ones. You do not have to change everything at once. You only have to return again and again to this moment. There will be days when you forget. Days when you rush, when stress takes over, when you feel completely disconnected. That is normal. The practice is not about being perfect. It is about remembering. Each time you remember, each time you return, you strengthen the habit of presence. And soon you realize that you are no longer lost for hours or days at a time. You are able to come back in minutes, sometimes even seconds. That is progress. That is transformation. So here is the invitation, wherever you are right now, whether sitting in a cafe in Paris, walking through a park in Montreal, or resting in your living room in New York, pause for one breath. Inhale and feel your body. Exhale and release the tension you have been carrying. Let yourself arrive. This moment is enough. This breath is enough. This step is enough. And when you finish listening, do not rush away. Take what you have touched here with you. As you move through your day, let your breath remind you to be present. As you walk, let each step be an arrival. Let your body become your home again. Because freedom is not waiting somewhere far away. It is waiting inside you in the simplest act of living fully in this moment. The longer you practice, the more you realize that freedom is not a dramatic escape. It is not about leaving your job or running away from your life. It is about learning to live differently within the very life you already have. When you breathe consciously while washing dishes, you discover that the soap bubbles glisten with colors you never noticed before. When you walk mindfully down the hallway at work, you discover that each step can feel steady, dignified, alive. When you pause before answering a difficult email, you discover that patience and clarity are always available if you give yourself just a few breaths. This kind of awareness seems small, but over time it reshapes the entire texture of your days. Instead of being dragged helplessly by circumstances, you begin to participate actively in your own life. Instead of being at the mercy of thoughts and emotions, you begin to hold them with care. And slowly, the anxious edge softens the constant pressure, loosens the world itself feels more open. One of the most powerful shifts happens when you learn not only to breathe and walk with awareness, but also to sit with your own suffering. Most of us are taught to avoid pain at all costs. We distract ourselves with television, food, endless scrolling, overwork, anything to avoid feeling what hurts. But suffering that is ignored does not disappear. It hides in the body, in the muscles of the shoulders, in the knots of the stomach, in the tightness of the jaw. It waits, growing heavier until one day it erupts. Mindful breathing offers another way. When a wave of sadness or anger arises, you breathe in and recognize it. You say silently, sadness is here, anger is here, and as you exhale, you offer it kindness. You say, I am here with you. I will take care of you. This is not weakness. It is the opposite. It takes great courage to turn toward pain instead of running from it. But when you do, something begins to change. The feeling no longer controls you. It becomes softer, more transparent, like a storm cloud breaking apart under sunlight. I remember a story about a businessman who had built his identity on being strong, efficient, in control. For years, he suppressed every vulnerable feeling, burying them under work and success. But one day, during a small setback at the office, all of that hidden pain surfaced as overwhelming rage. He could not understand it at first until he began to practice mindful breathing. Slowly, he realized that the anger was a mask for grief. Grief that had been unacknowledged since childhood. Grief that came from not feeling loved unconditionally. Through breathing, through the tender act of sitting with his own pain, he began to heal. This is the gift of mindfulness. It does not erase suffering, but it transforms the way you hold it. Instead of being crushed by it, you cradle it like a mother cradles her crying child. And in that embrace, suffering begins to transform. When you can hold your own pain this way, you naturally begin to see others differently. You begin to notice that behind every harsh word is a wound. Behind every act of cruelty is fear. Behind every mask of indifference is a human being who is hurting. Suddenly, compassion arises. You no longer want to retaliate. You no longer want to punish. You want to understand, to help. This is how inner freedom becomes outer peace. I once witnessed a retreat where groups of people from opposing communities were invited to practice together. At first, they could not even look at each other. So deep was their anger and suspicion. But after days of mindful breathing, walking, and listening to their own suffering, something shifted. When they finally sat together and shared their stories, not with blame but with honesty, something extraordinary happened. They realized that the other side had suffered exactly as they had. The moment compassion appeared, the walls began to crumble. What seemed impossible, understanding between sworn enemies, suddenly became possible simply because people had learned to breathe, to listen, to be present with suffering. This is why presence matters so much. It is not just a personal practice. It is a collective medicine. Imagine if more parents paused to breathe before reacting in anger. Imagine if more leaders walked mindfully before speaking. Imagine if more communities created spaces for deep listening instead of endless argument. The ripple effects would be profound. And yet, the practice remains humble. It always comes back to one thing: this breath, this step. You do not need to wait for the world to change before you practice. You do not need to wait until your life is calm. You begin exactly where you are. Even now, as you read these words, you can pause and notice your breath. That pause is not a small thing. It is everything. Consider the miracle of simply being alive. Right now, your heart is beating. Your lungs are working. Your nervous system is firing in countless ways to keep you balanced, alert, alive, all without your conscious effort. This is happening whether or not you notice. But when you do notice, when you bring your full attention to it, gratitude floods in. Gratitude not for something grand, but for something as basic as the fact that you are still here. Gratitude in turn creates joy, a joy that is not dependent on circumstances. A joy that arises simply because you recognize the conditions of happiness that are already present. You can be grateful for your eyes, which allow you to see the face of a loved one or the colors of the sky. You can be grateful for your ears, which allow you to hear music, laughter, the sound of rain. You can be grateful for the body that has carried you through every triumph and every failure. When you open yourself to this kind of gratitude, you discover that joy is always within reach. I once heard someone describe it this way. She said she had been living like a poor person in a mansion, surrounded by treasures yet constantly focused on what was missing. When she began to practice gratitude, she realized how rich she already was. That shift did not erase her challenges, but it transformed her experience of life. She stopped waiting for happiness in the future and began touching it in the present. This is perhaps the most radical truth of all. Happiness is not a destination, it is a way of traveling. You can generate it at will, not by forcing yourself to smile, but by noticing what is already here. Each breath is an opportunity, each step is an arrival, each moment is an invitation. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. At first, you may need reminders, a bell on your phone, a note on your desk, a gentle nudge from a friend. Over time, presence becomes a habit. Your body begins to recognize the signs of tension earlier. Your mind begins to return more quickly. You catch yourself before being swept away by stress. You remember to pause, to breathe, to smile, and gradually your life feels less like a storm and more like a river flowing steadily, peacefully, carrying you forward. And here is something beautiful: the world around you responds. When you are calmer, others feel calmer too. When you are patient, others become more open. When you radiate gratitude, others feel inspired. You do not have to preach or convince anyone. Your presence itself becomes the teaching. Imagine a dinner table where one person chooses to be present, truly present. Instead of scrolling on a phone, they look into the eyes of the person across from them. Instead of rushing, they savor the food, grateful for its taste and for the hands that prepared it. Slowly, others at the table begin to slow down too. The atmosphere changes. A simple meal becomes a celebration of life. Or imagine walking into a crowded subway in New York or London. Everyone is tense, tired, absorbed in their devices. But one person breathes calmly, standing with a relaxed posture, eyes soft, present. You would be surprised how much that single presence can shift the energy around them. People sense it even unconsciously. Peace is contagious. This is the quiet revolution of mindful living. It does not demand banners or protests. It does not require dramatic speeches. It requires each of us in our ordinary lives to come home to ourselves and live with awareness, breath by breath, step by step. And what happens when we forget? Because we will. We will get lost in thought, overwhelmed by deadlines, pulled back into old patterns. That is part of being human. But here is the good news. Forgetting is not failure. It is simply another chance to remember. Every time you notice you are lost, you are already on the way back. Every time you pause and take one mindful breath, you are free again. Over time, this practice becomes like a compass. No matter how far you wander, you always know how to return home. Home is not a place. It is a way of being. It is the union of body and mind in the present moment. And once you know how to find it, you can return anytime, anywhere. So let us return now. Inhale gently. Feel the air enter your body. Exhale softly. Let the tension release. Smile not because everything is perfect, but because you are here, alive, breathing. That is enough. That is freedom. There comes a moment in practice when you begin to notice that life itself feels different. The noises that used to irritate you, the traffic, the chatter, the clinking dishes in a cafe become part of a larger symphony. The delays that once drove you crazy become opportunities to pause and breathe. The ordinary routines of your day, waiting in line at the grocery store, folding laundry, riding the bus, transform into invitations to return home to yourself. And you begin to realize something profound. Freedom is not something you achieve once and for all. It is something you practice moment by moment. Each time you remember to breathe, you taste it. Each time you walk mindfully, you touch it. Each time you choose presence over distraction, you embody it. And slowly the small moments accumulate until your whole life begins to feel different. Not because the circumstances have magically changed, but because you have. Consider the story of a young man in Montreal who discovered mindfulness after years of battling anxiety. His mind was like a storm, constantly spinning with what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. At first, the idea of simply breathing sounded ridiculous to him, but in his desperation, he tried. He began with 2 minutes a day, then 5, then 10. He practiced while walking to the metro, while brushing his teeth, while waiting for his coffee. And something remarkable happened. The storm didn't disappear overnight, but he learned how to step out of it. Instead of being swept away by every anxious thought, he found moments of calm in the middle of it all. He discovered that freedom was not the absence of fear, but the ability to breathe and walk even with fear present. This is a crucial lesson. Freedom is not perfection. It is not about eliminating every difficulty. It is about learning how to live fully with whatever arises. Pain will come, stress will come, uncertainty will come, but you can meet them differently. You can meet them with awareness, with steadiness, with compassion, and that changes everything. Imagine standing in a hospital waiting room, heart pounding with fear for someone you love. The mind races. What if? What next? How will I handle this? The natural instinct is panic, but then you remember your breath. You inhale deeply, feel your feet on the ground, exhale slowly. For a moment, you anchor yourself in the present. The fear is still there, but it does not own you. You are not drowning in it. You are holding it. That moment of presence does not erase the difficulty, but it gives you strength to endure it. Over time, you learn that this strength is always available. The breath is always here. The ground is always beneath your feet. The body is always ready to welcome you home. You may forget 1,000 times, but you can return 1,001. That is the practice. And something else happens as you practice. Joy returns. Not the fleeting, fragile joy of entertainment or achievement, but a deeper joy rooted in being alive. You notice it in small things: the play of sunlight on a wall, the laughter of a child, the taste of warm bread, the scent of rain on the pavement. You notice it in the miracle of your own body, still breathing, still beating, still carrying you through each day. Joy is no longer something you chase. It is something you discover right where you are. There was once a woman in Berlin who had lost nearly everything: her partner, her job, her health. She felt that her life was over, but through mindfulness she began to see differently. She started with the smallest things: the breath that still came, the bird that still sang outside her window, the cup of tea she could still hold in her hands. These small recognitions did not solve her problems, but they changed her perspective. She began to feel gratitude again, and gratitude became her doorway to joy. Slowly, her life opened up, not because everything was restored, but because she rediscovered the freedom of being present. Gratitude and joy are not luxuries. They are necessities. They are what sustain us through the storms. And they are cultivated not by waiting for perfect circumstances, but by practicing presence in imperfect ones. When you live this way, the impact goes beyond you. People around you begin to feel it. They may not know why, but they sense something different. Your calm becomes their calm. Your patience becomes their safety. Your joy becomes their inspiration. You become, without even trying, a source of peace for others. Think of a classroom where the teacher begins each day with a moment of breathing. The children, restless and distracted, slowly settle. Their bodies relax. Their minds clear. The whole atmosphere changes. Or imagine a workplace where the manager takes a mindful pause before speaking. Instead of reacting with frustration, they respond with clarity. The team feels respected, understood. Tension dissolves. Or picture a family dinner where one person chooses to be truly present, listening deeply, eating slowly, smiling gently. The entire family feels the difference. Presence is contagious. This is how mindfulness becomes a form of service. You do not need to preach or persuade. You simply live differently. And in doing so, You invite others to remember their own freedom. It may seem small, but history is made of small acts. Great change begins with ordinary people choosing to live with awareness. A parent teaching a child to breathe before reacting. A nurse walking mindfully through a crowded corridor. A commuter closing their eyes on the subway to reconnect with their breath. These moments matter. They accumulate. They ripple outward, and slowly they change the world. But perhaps the most beautiful discovery is this: you are not separate from the world you seek to change. You are not a small self struggling inside a vast universe. You are the awareness in which the universe itself appears. This is the heart of the teaching. When you breathe, when you walk, when you come home to yourself, you discover that the boundary between you and the world is not as solid as you once believed. Look closely. Where does your awareness end and the world begin? The sound of the rain, the warmth of the sun, the laughter of a friend. Are they outside of you, or are they part of your experience? In truth, everything you know of the world appears within, or your awareness. You are not separate from it. You are it. When you see this, loneliness becomes impossible. How can you be lonely when everything is already within you? How can you be separate when the same awareness that looks out of your eyes is looking out of everyone else's? Different bodies, different stories, but the same essential presence. This recognition is not abstract. It is immediate, alive, transformative. It dissolves the illusion of separation and reveals the truth of connection. And from this recognition flows the deepest compassion. When you see another person, you no longer see a stranger. You see yourself in another form. Their suffering is your suffering. Their joy is your joy. This changes how you treat them. You no longer wish to harm, you wish to help. You no longer compete, you cooperate. You no longer withhold love, you give it freely because you understand that giving to others is also giving to yourself. This is the vision of freedom that mindfulness reveals, not just personal peace but collective awakening. A world where people remember who they truly are, where compassion guides action, where presence shapes culture. It may sound idealistic, but it begins with something as humble as a breath, as simple as a step. So take another breath now. Inhale and know you are alive. Exhale and know you are free. Let this moment be enough. Let this moment be your home. And as you carry this practice into your life, into your work, your family, your community, remember that you are not just breathing for yourself. You are breathing for all of us. Every mindful breath contributes to a world that is calmer, kinder, freer. And that world begins here, now with you. When you look back at your life, what will you remember? Will it be the endless rush from one task to another? The sleepless nights spent worrying about things that never came to pass? The moments when you were physically present but mentally absent? Or will it be the times when you were truly alive? The mornings when you felt your breath filling your lungs like sunlight? The evenings when you walked slowly under the open sky? The moments when you looked into the eyes of someone you loved and saw them clearly, without distraction, without judgment? This is the choice that mindfulness offers you. Not the choice to erase pain or avoid responsibility, but the choice to live your life fully, to inhabit each moment with awareness, to claim the freedom that has always been yours. Every breath, every step is an invitation. The question is whether you will accept it. Freedom is not glamorous. It is not the kind of freedom sold in advertisements or promised by politicians. It is quieter, humbler, more intimate. It is the freedom of being able to pause before reacting in anger. The freedom of tasting your food instead of eating on autopilot. The freedom of holding your child with your full attention, not thinking about work or chores or screens. It is the freedom of knowing that you can return home to yourself at any moment, no matter what is happening around you. Think of a farmer walking across a field in the early morning. The air is cold, the sky still heavy with night, but he matches each step with his breath. In that rhythm, he feels alive, steady, grounded. He is not rushing. He is not lost. He is free. Or think of a nurse in a crowded hospital surrounded by noise and urgency. She pauses in the hallway, inhales deeply, exhales slowly. For that moment, she reconnects with her own calm. And in doing so, she becomes a source of calm for everyone she touches. This is freedom. It does not require perfect conditions. It only requires remembering. And what about you? Where in your life do you need this remembering most? Perhaps it is in the middle of conflict, when words sharpen and tempers rise. Perhaps it is in the silence of your bedroom at 3 in the morning when worries echo louder than sleep. Perhaps it is at work surrounded by pressure deadlines and expectations. Wherever it is, the practice is the same. Inhale, exhale, return. No matter how many times you forget, you can always return. That is the gift. That is the door that never closes. As you continue to practice, you will discover another truth. You do not practice only for yourself. Your breath is your own, but its effects ripple outward. When you are calmer, you create calm for others. When you are patient, you create patience around you. When you walk in peace, you give permission for others to walk more gently. This is how freedom spreads, not through force, but through presence. The world we live in desperately needs this kind of presence. A world drowning in distraction, inflamed by anger, divided by fear. We do not need more noise. We need more stillness. We do not need more speed. We need more depth. We do not need more perfection. We need more compassion. And that begins with each of us here and now, breathing as free people, walking as free people. Imagine if communities across the world embraced this way of living. Cities where people pause to breathe before speaking harshly. Workplaces where meetings began with a moment of silence, allowing everyone to arrive fully. Families where dinners were eaten without phones, where conversations unfolded with patience, where laughter was savored. The world would not suddenly become perfect, but it would become more human. And that is what we are longing for, not perfection, but humanity. Humanity rooted in presence. Humanity rooted in compassion. Humanity rooted in the recognition that we are not separate from one another. My breath is connected to your breath. My freedom is bound up in your freedom. We rise together, or we fall together, and the simplest act of mindfulness, one breath, one step, becomes an act of solidarity with all beings. So let us imagine together. Imagine a morning in which you rise, and instead of rushing immediately into tasks, you take a single breath and feel grateful for being alive. Imagine walking out your door and letting your feet meet the earth with awareness. Each step steady, each step free. Imagine listening to the people in your life, not just with half your mind, but with your whole presence, truly hearing them, truly seeing them. Imagine living each day not as a race to the finish line, but as a series of arrivals, each moment complete in itself. This is not a fantasy. This is available to you right now. The truth is, life is already enough. You are already enough. You do not need to become someone else or reach some distant goal before you can touch peace. Peace is available in this breath, in this step, in this heartbeat. Freedom is not in the future. It is in your direct experience of the present. And when you understand that you carry with you an unshakable strength, because life will test you. There will be loss. There will be disappointment. There will be uncertainty. But if you know how to return to your breath, if you know how to walk with awareness, if you know how to hold your suffering with compassion, then nothing can truly defeat you. You will bend, but you will not break. You will stumble, but you will not be lost. You will suffer, but you will not be destroyed by suffering. This is the strength of freedom. And freedom has a responsibility. It calls you not only to care for yourself, but to care for others, to use your presence to heal, to comfort, to build bridges, to remember that every person you meet is also carrying invisible burdens, to recognize that compassion is not a luxury but a necessity, the only force strong enough to hold this fractured world together. So when you breathe as a free person, you breathe not only for yourself but for all those who cannot, for the child crying in fear, for the refugee searching for safety, for the elder longing for dignity, for the planet itself, struggling under the weight of human neglect. Each breath becomes an offering, a seed of peace planted in a troubled world. And when you walk as a free person, you walk not only for yourself, but for all those who cannot, for those confined to hospital beds, for those imprisoned by injustice, for those silenced by oppression. Each step becomes a statement. I am here, I am alive, I am free, and I walk for you as well. This is how practice becomes larger than any individual. This is how it becomes a movement, a way of living that can transform not just one life, but the life of the world. And it begins so simply, not with grand declarations, not with impossible goals, but with this inhale, exhale, step, arrive. As you come to the end of these words, I invite you to pause once more. Wherever you are, sitting at your desk in London, riding a train in Toronto, standing in your kitchen in New York, pause. Inhale gently, exhale softly. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Feel the life within your body. Smile, not because everything is perfect, but because you are alive, and that is already a miracle. Remember that you have the power to return home to yourself at any moment. Remember that freedom is not somewhere else, it is here. Remember that happiness is not later, it is now. Remember that peace is not far away. It is in your next breath, in your next step. And as you carry this into your life, do so with confidence. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not lacking. You are alive, and that is enough. Each day is an opportunity to begin again. Each breath is a doorway to freedom. Each step is an arrival. So walk gently, breathe deeply, live fully, and may your presence be a gift to yourself, to those around you, and to the world that needs it so much. Because to breathe as a free person, to walk as a free person, is to live the life that has always been waiting for you. And that life is not in the past or in the future. It is here now, in this very moment.